Hey there, I'm Parker Rex. I led technology at a startup that did over $50 million dollars a year in sales, cracking almost a quarter billion in lifetime sales. After that, tried a bunch of different startups on my own. Some of them were really stupid ideas and learned a whole lot about AI along the way. So I've been using these tools every single day for pretty much 3 years, basically since all of them got really, really popular. And on this channel, I upload a daily update on the things that I'm learning in the field as I'm doing AI services. So I'm no longer full time working on SaaS, instead, niching down to doing AI services for businesses to either get more leads or save money or save time. And so it's real stuff that's happening, and we're on the road to 100K a month. Let's get into it. There's a lot of stuff to cover today, and the alarms in my apartment building are supposed to go off. So if I cut it early, that's because I don't want to hear that, and you don't either. So cool. On the docket for today, we've got some good stuff that's happening in AI. It's all really, really positive. If you are a user of it, if you are a company building it, you're kind of scared that you're lighting money on fire. So first thing is, I want to cover this question that came in on my main channel. So if you found this one, that's awesome. Welcome. If you aren't aware, I have another channel that was mainly product management content. And I'm finding that as I continue to upload, I'm kind of churning through a lot of these like dead subscribers because I had gotten them quite a while ago. But let's answer this first question. This Bama Patriot 61 says, good info. However, I'm a brand new user of Cursor. Was just trying to set it up today, but my screen doesn't show the same things as the basic video tutorials I've watched. Composer would not show up until I had uninstalled and installed it 4 or 5 times. I'll keep playing with it until it makes sense, though. Pretty clear it's a great tool. I also saw some stuff about MCPs and adding Cline to it, but I have no idea how to do those two things. Okay. That said, can you recommend some basic beginner videos that might help? Yeah. First of all, thanks for the question. Second of all, yeah, it is confusing because first of all, Cursor, they do have a lot of updates, but they don't do a good job of explaining them. So typically, when you have a piece of software come out, you have what's called a change log. And that kind of shows you exactly what's going on. Like if I typed in open change log, then they would have this page that basically just reads off all the different updates. And as you can see, it's up to date. And it's really helpful because then you know what's going on. You can check the version number that you have versus what's in the change log. I actually don't see a version number in here, but point is with Cursor's change log, when you open it up, it just says point X. So it's kind of confusing. And a lot of the time when you're using Cursor, you won't get the update, but others will. So that's kind of a problem, right? Because you don't know, like, even if you're using the same thing. So in the case that this guy, Bama Patriot 61, like he's watching a video that I made, I don't know, a few months ago. Like it looks like this was uploaded. How would I check? Well, anyways, it was uploaded several months ago and he's having trouble. So the thing is Cursor no longer has a composer. They kind of rebranded it. So it just has an AI pane is what they call it. So it might be really confusing because the early versions of this look very different. I don't need to totally go into the details, but I'll just give you a quick one where all the videos that you're probably watching are looking something like this because the early version had a dedicated window that opened up, and then it had this dedicated area where you have your code in here, and then you have your threads in here, and then in the background that was all of the normal kind of developer platform. Like that was just the normal program. So it was like a program on top of a program, but they've since changed it because it was a little bit confusing, where now instead of having that be separate from the chat pane on the right, you actually just have this little drop down that's a little bit confusing if you haven't been using this tool a lot. But in there, you have a couple different things where you have the chat, you have the agent, and then you have ask. And the things that I don't even know if it's called chat. Yeah, it's agent, ask, and edit. So let's change that real quick. Edit. So I've never even used the edit one, to be frank. The agent is probably the one that most people who are newer are trying to get into because what it's doing is it will go through and actually start changing the files. Those are the most popular kind of mainstream features where it's like make, you know, X thing or X feature, and it's going to come back and it's going to be like, okay. And it will start doing multi steps. So it's like, file search. So it'll start looking around at what it needs to do. It will start to do, find and replace. So find and replace is where it's finding the chunks of code in there. Like the way that that tool works is like you'll, see it going. So you'll see, oh, it's going to delete this code. It's going to this code. And that's what's called inline diffing. So that's most likely what's going on. Make sure you're on the earliest version of it. Sometimes, again, it gets stuck. I think in a more recent video mentioned that if you want to make sure you always have the latest version of it, you can install it with Brew, which is essentially Mac's way of managing your apps through the command line. So instead of going to an app store or instead of waiting for them, you'd have the ability to type in here and say, you know, go download this. So that's what I would tell you. And again, thank you for the question. So if you people that are watching have questions, there's no question too dumb. Just go ahead and drop it in here. But let's continue. So up next, I wanted to talk about something that came across with some client work yesterday. So there's a bunch of no code tools out there, and I traditionally really did not like using them because in the past, basically, like let's say you have a spectrum of products and you have no code and you have code. And so over here, it would be like full custom, right? You're writing everything. And usually there's also something that's happening where you have like another spectrum, which is the customizability. And then you have cookie cutter will be the other one. So we'll say like cookie cutter. Like if you go to a Squarespace site, you can tell it's a Squarespace site, right? And it's okay. Like if you're doing something for a really basic use case, then that's great. If a business at the end of the day wants to make money and serve their customers, they don't need a lot of customizability. Cool. Go for something because at the end of the day, no code tools will be a lot cheaper and coding tools will be a lot more expensive. But in the case that this client thing and how it plays into what you may learn while you're in the field is these no code tools are definitely getting better where the integration of third party scripts is something you can do now. So on this spectrum, like if you had no code and cookie cutter, I would say you have Squarespace, you have Wix is a little more customizable. And then as you come up, Webflow used to be, I'm just going to do WF. Webflow used to be just full, like, yeah, you could do customization, but it wasn't beyond the little tags. Like there's two boxes you could put tags into. But what I realized yesterday, because I had something that a client wanted that was very custom and you couldn't do with Webflow, you just straight up could not. And they had actually hired a Webflow developer before and he couldn't get it done. But that's because it did require a lot of customizability, a third party. So the point is these things are moving up and up and up. I know that I have a friend who's running a really profitable media company called Florida of Tomorrow, and he's been using Wix, and it works great for him because they're adding more and more stuff. So these are definitely, in general, what I'm finding with the integration of a bunch of AI stuff and the just change in the market. Like people want more customization. So no code's going up and right. And I think too that like if we realize the other trend that's going on is that we might be dropping one or even one and a half of these dollar sign markers because the cost of coding is coming down. So with that, I wanted to just kind of call out some of the stuff that I learned when I was doing the client work because this will set you apart if you are building sites for clients. where there's this library when it comes to making sites look really good. You want them to be customized, probably stand out from the crowd, have a memorable website. And what I found was, in the Node world and like the next JS kind of full code world, you'd have like motion for React. Another one's called Magic UI. And you'll find that a lot of technology companies and startups use stuff like this where, oh, cool, like you can have these things come in. At the end of the day, they're still customized components. So you have the code, you can open it up, you can see it, and you can change it. So this would be in kind of the React world where you can have this would be like a marquee, and you can open this up in V0, which is a nice trained L. But I was wondering, like, how do you find something like this in Webflow? Like, if I wanted to do this nice little tracer that's going around, that's probably a shader with an animation using Tailwind, how would I do that? Because I don't, again, get access to something like this, which is motion, where I can have something cool where, even on load, it did that, or, an exit animation where it looks kind of like Apple. And so I did find something and I wanted to share it. So there's an application that's called Andy Slater. So Slater gives you the ability to insert live script to a Webflow website. And what that means is if you're familiar with Webflow, basically, whenever you want to make a change, it's really kind of slow. So if you're used to coding, it's frustrating. So, old Webflow looked something like this. And this is actually like current Webflow, but I'm calling it old because there's people that have found a better way. And that's what I'm about to show you. Old Webflow would be you're in the GUI and, you maybe do like a bunch of clicking and you're clicking and you do 100 different clicks. And then you finally make the changes and you can hit a little eyeball if you want to turn it on and off the preview, but it won't actually show you what the stuff is. Like it won't show you what production will look like if you're doing any custom code in there. So that's not very helpful. And then the next step would be that you hit this button up here that basically allows you to publish. And it's going to go through a couple different steps. It has like 4 different steps that it kind of checks through. And then you can choose if you want to go to a staging site or if you want to go to prod. And then after a few minutes, it will work. And that's important because when you're doing a handoff and you've just done a whole lot of work on it. So like on my case, like I'd done like 50 different pushes. I'll consider like this whole process as a push. I'd done 50 pushes and then you get like the old version and you're like, what the heck? So then you have to say, oh, sorry, client, can you wait like 3 hours because it has not flushed or deleted, V42. Sorry, you're seeing V42. So instead, what I've realized is, you have the Slater method, and there's other ways of doing this. There was a way to do it with Code Sandbox, but it has since been kind of nerfed. But what the Slater method does is you allows you to basically, instead of in Webflow, like when you want to put code in, you have to go back to the home page and you have to do some custom, like you have like header or you have the body, and it only gives you these 2 tags to play with, which is plenty. But what Slater does is it actually gives you a dedicated VM, like a virtual machine that's running this and hosting this code. And then you can start out by basically, step 1 is you add the Slater snippet. And once you've done that, anytime that you want to make some customization, you just add a file. So that's a file. And then you have this split screen where you have the AI Copilot, and then you have your code here. And then the best part is I'm going in here, I have my little companion, that's awesome. But then when I want to deploy it, it just goes and then it's live. So I'm flipping back and forth between these two and it's immediate, which is amazing. So that's just something I wanted to call out because the equivalent of the kind of customization in Node slash like full code stuff would be something like GSAP is one that's popular. I haven't actually implemented this. What I did was I used Swiper. So Swiper.js allowed me to get this really nice swipey animation, like something that you would expect in most apps, like this, this exact thing, ironically enough. But the client wanted to be able to have their properties on the site to look something like this, where you could swipe through them, you get dynamic information. We have some arrows on it too. So what I was able to do, and what you could do too, is if you ever run into this issue, is you basically can just host the CDN and you can put that in through Slater if you wanted to. But because I knew I was going to be reusing this a lot, I ended up just doing it manually in Webflow. But for the actual customization files, so beyond just like loading in the access to Swiper, then I was able to go in and I wrote a little file like this, where I was like, okay, I need to initialize it. So just like you would in a normal JavaScript project, you need to get an instance of this. And then I renamed it from Swiper to the name of, the project that I was working on. And then I get the full customization where I can go into the docs and see, okay, what is the set of parameters that I need in order to do this? And then you just match up these classes to what's in Webflow. One caveat I noticed was that some of the class names, if you kept it like this and you used a full name button, then it would break. But you can just shorthand it and it works. So that overall, I think, is going to be a trend where as basically as models get better and better and better, the cost of creating custom software goes down and down and down. And these no code tools are kind of in this weird spot where it's like, well, people and clients and businesses will most likely want more customizability because they believe that, if they think that the money is going to go up and right, then by doing some customizability, then they're going to want to do that. And therefore, these will have to go up and right, and these will have to go up and right. So that's that. One thing I wanted to cover too is Cline. So Cline is the market leader when it comes to like basically innovating in the AI agent like coding space. I talked about this in a video yesterday, and I will continue talking about it because they released another amazing thing. But basically, if you guys remember, you had Snapchat and they released stories way back in the day. They were the ones. And then the second that they did that, then you had Zuck come along and he's like, yo, that's a nice thing. I want that. So then they get it. And then LinkedIn did it. And then YouTube did it. I don't even know if they have those anymore. But like everyone basically fast followed, aka stole that. And what now has happened is the same thing in the AI space where it's like you've got Cline, which used to be Claude Dev, and they're the ones that are building the stories or the innovative features in the kind of coding agent space. So what they did early was they did the agent. And what it allowed you to do is what we kind of spoke about earlier, where it's like recursive editing. And now they're adding more and more things. So they added MCP, they've added plan and act mode. And most recently, as of, I believe, like just hours ago, they published a guide on how to best use it, as well as this recursive chain of thought open source project. And wow, what does that mean? Well, what it means is that they're leveraging the fact that they have diehard users to increase the quality of the product. And oh, got a fire alarm. I'll be back. Oh, let's see how loud it is. Man, we're gonna sit and see if this starts or not. But what they did is they released this best practices as well as this open source kind of chain of thought system that better holds your context. So first I want to go through the list that they published of best practices. And then I want to talk about this recursive chain of thought system because we're in another battle where the two biggest ones that are not Cline, which because Cline's not the largest, but you have Windsurf and you have Cursor who are kind of beefing on who's got the best contact system. I talked about this in a video before where Y Combinator came out and they're like, Windsurf has the best one. And then all the Cursor users were like, no. And then the Cursor founder comes out and it's just this whole thing. So I think it's funny that Cline's just popping in and like, hey, we didn't have to build this and we think it's better. So on the vibe coding techniques, which I hate that word, but I want to kind of go through them. So one of the best practices is let Cline run free at the start. Most users micromanage every decision and end up with Frankenstein code. Instead, let Cline build the scaffolding, then refine the important parts later. I think that's important because if you have a really good plan, then you should be following it. It says watch your context window like it's your agent's sleep routine. Stretch it too long and you get a dopey coder. Keep it under 100K tokens when possible. Start sweating at 150. Create a checkpoint at 170. I think that's a good practice. I've been doing that. I think that's good. In general, you want to create smaller modular files. Your context window will thank you. That's something that you can cover in your rule set. So that's good. I've been doing that. I think that I actually have it in the Cline settings. I need to close this project, but let's open this up and let's just make sure we're doing that. So, okay. I want to go to settings. I want to go, yeah. So my custom instructions, I make sure that I say write concise technical responses. There should be something about a file staying short. Use functional declarative programming. If it's not in here, then I definitely need to ask it or add it. But this is where you'd be doing that. So I think what probably would make sense is I'm going to add something in here that basically just makes sure that we are doing that. And it seems silly that I'm just removing spaces, but every token counts. I don't know if it cuts white space or not, but I'm also OCD. So there's that. And it seems like the fire alarm has not started, so that's great. Let's just add one in here. So let's grab our code base. And this code base is a perplexity recreation, which is really cool. Create smaller modular files. Okay, so that's going to be a key principle. And then use plan mode first. Let Cline see the big picture before diving into your implementation. If it needs to read 30 files before making a plan, your prompt needs work. Got it. Documentation and logging is the ultimate debugging superpower. Create a logging utility with 5 levels, verbose, and trace everything. So you know what? What we should do is just make one of those. I'm going to do it in a project that I work on myself. And let's stick it in. Yeah, let's stick it in my personal site. So let's open this up. And okay. So let's see Cline go to work. Let's follow this best practice. And I'm going to say, create a logging utility with 5 levels and trace everything. Let's start out with plan because I want to see if it makes it better. And as you know, doing the plan will be more expensive. It's probably going to cost like 30 cents, three dimes. And we can continue going through. Oh, create a new file in lib called logger.ts. The funny thing is I have this in other projects, so I made these before. Act. Cool. So while that's going, we'll continue. When errors happen, crank up logging verbosity and use @terminal and conversations. Cline reads those massive logs better than you ever could. Thank you. I know. Look at that. Nice. So the next step will be actually having this go through the parts that would make most sense that are showing errors. I'm not going to do it preemptively on every file because that'd be overkill. But what I will have it do is I'm going to create a new task and have it run on CRUD operations. So create a README in every folder. Okay. Let's make a README. Let's try this out. Cool, it did it. It's giving me an example of it as well. That's really nice. Thank you. So I can reference that. And what I will do is I'm going to instruct Cline in those custom instructions about how we use the logger so that I make sure that it will use it correctly. So once that's done, looks like it's having a little bit of a tough time with some TypeScript errors, but it figured out. Oh no, it was creating a simple test script to show how to use it in a real world situation. And it's writing itself a nice little README file. It's great. Thank you. Okay. Okay, the alarm stopped, so we're gonna try to continue here. Yeah, so we added that logger in. I'm not gonna go through every single one of these, but I think that the whole system would be a lot better if I did have this. So let's see. Yeah, we need to update TSX. It's giving me example or what's happening here. Hmm. Okay. Well, anyways, all of these are great rules. I think what I can do is I can add a couple of these, put a README in every folder. Okay, so I just implemented those changes following their best practices, and it's pretty great. It wrote a bunch of tests, it wrote a README file, and I'm just going to continue using this. I think the future for now is using the cursor stuff for cleanup. Luckily, they're both there, right? You can kind of hop back and forth, but I'm finding that this is really good. Okay, so up next, one quick tip is I think that having a skill set context prompt makes a ton of sense because if you just have one of these sitting in a note, then anytime that you're using any sort of AI coding agent that may be in a browser, like Grok 3, for instance, then you want to be able to give it the context of the stack that you're using. I know you typically have like a Claude.md or a Cursor Rules, but if you don't have that, this is something that I find really, really handy that you can just chuck in and get going. So, for the sake of time, actually, we can test this PRD prompt because I said I was going to do that yesterday, and I want to give it a go. So let me find it real quick, and we're gonna have it work inside of Grok 3 to come up with a plan for making line writer. So we're gonna try that. So here's the prompt. Let me new PRD prompt, and all these will be available on my website. What I do is after these videos, I just create a quick blog post that has the link to this like Scally draw, like the whiteboard thing, and then a link to like basically all the links of the stuff that I talk about are in there. So just so you know. So let's grab this and we're going to go to Grok. This is like the best planner I've found. So let me grab this, throw it in here. Okay, you are senior product manager for the following project. Okay, so the following project, you, let's see, it's not picking up my mic. You create Line Writer, the viral game where there's a white background canvas and a pencil tool that the user can use to draw a path for a sled to follow along. I'm not going to give it too much instruction. I don't want to have to recreate what the description of Line Writer is, but maybe I should. Let me grab another one. I'm going to do deep research. Explain the mechanics behind the popular game Line Rider. Okay. We're going to grab that. So, in case it doesn't know, well, actually, I guess this would be redundant. Hmm. Washington Cadez in 2006. I think this will be helpful actually because it will let it focus on how it's going to implement it rather than using compute to figure out how it works because those are two different problems. Meanwhile, this thing's going ham. What did it do? I noticed that because I had added a field, I added some stuff on the client for detecting where a subscriber is coming from on my website, but the database did not get the update because I wasn't prompting it correctly. So then subscriptions weren't working. So I just had to kind of go through and fix that for me. But let's see, this should come back any second. If you're not familiar with Grok, this is XAI, and they did what most companies took like multiple years to put out. They did it in like a year, which is crazy. So let's see. At its core, allows. Okay, this will be good. Player interaction, creative. Okay. So what we can do is let's grab this, and we're gonna stick this in the prompts under the PRD instructions. Oops. No, 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 no. That's not what we wanted. We need to finish our prompt. Okay. You can put that in there. And then I also noticed it gave us a nice table of the game mechanics. Aspect. Cool. Yeah. That should be good. So we'll put that there too. Let's see how Grok handles this. And we're going to do think. And we're going to hit save. Cool. So it's writing that. Now, while that's going, let's go back and see. As you can see, I mean, the way that I work is I have three different AI things happening, kind of not simultaneously, but I have a quick question because I don't totally understand what a smoke test is. So I gave it the context prompt that I mentioned before. Then I say, hey, like, give me examples of each of these. And then the second thing I have going is the fix for the website. And then obviously the third is creating a PRD. So let's see what it did. Asked to go through, it read through the homepage, it read through the newsletter sign up, it saw subscribe action, examined the insert. It looked at the logger because we had mentioned we wanted a logger. It looked at the logger readme because we needed that. It checked through the test that I had just actually had it write in a previous task. And then checked the footer to see the different types of signups. Check the blog because we want to attribute these basically. Check the schema. Check the subs. Ran the script for checking the subs. Saw that it did not have the column. It ran a test based on my investigation, and I have a clear understanding of the newsletter subscription flow, what needs to be done. Let's implement the necessary changes. See, that's great because it had all of that stuff before it. It can go through and figure it out because there was good logging, because there were tests written, and there was a README. So now let's update the subscribers at TS to ensure it properly handles the source param and includes additional logging. Now I need to update the actions file. Okay. Update the newsletter component. Okay. What did it do? Got it. So it's adding the source. Don't want to read that yet. It's important that you actually read these, right? Because otherwise you end up running in circles. And I learned that the hard way. So it created a new sign up form. So let's check out the difference. Footer, newsletter sign up. It has client logging in it. Good. It's using this new stuff. That's nice. React 19. It's validating the email with Zod. Nice. It's doing an animation. Where would this be? Source. Cool. So it has subscription sources, blog footer, blog post unknown. So it makes a const for that and then references it. I like that a lot. It has TS docs in it, which is fire. Gosh, this is good. Now it updated the footer to add that. It created a new sign up specifically for this. I think it could have probably been easier if it just had a conditional to a page or something, but whatever. I guess it would be bad if the page name changed, so I'll let it do its thing. It updated that. It did the import, created a blog post newsletter sign up. So let's look at this. Same sort of deal. It all has the confetti, which is nice. It's using the start transition. Cool. What else did it do? Update the blog post page to use it. Smart. Updated the integration tests. Smart. Updated the subscriber test file. Smart. It fixed some syntax. Some more syntax. Another script update. Test it. Update. Cool. Completed comprehensive update. Added subscription sources as an enum. Now, I don't know if that would have changed the database because it didn't write any sort of. Okay. Add source column. The script tab. Okay. It's interesting it's going that route instead of writing a SQL query. So let's see. Does it have source? No, it doesn't. So what I'll do is I can just create a new one. Or no, maybe it would have been an enum in here. Enumerated types, subscriber status, user role. No. So we needed to write a SQL query that will do that because otherwise it's still not going to get stored. So we'll run into that issue again. So let's make the fastest way would be to just create a new migration file. So all this stuff's good, but what we need to do is then have, I don't want to have it as an enum because if I do change something in the future, then it would get blocked and it'll require more database changes. So I can have it be a little bit loose where it'll just be a new column in the DB, but I want to have it as a migration file. So I'll do .ql. I'll grab this and then, add source column to subscribers table. I guess this just never got pushed. This is 2 days ago. So yeah, let's just do this. This seems fine. Update them to have a default. Yeah. So let's just push that up, or we can just grab this for the sake of time and go in here, run it. Cool. And we go back into our table. We should have, yep, cool. And we can delete these tests. And that should be good. I'm going to push this code up. And in the meantime, yeah, I'm going to push this code up and then I'm going to test it while it's building. So let's run the tests first. I just made a bunch of changes to add attribution to check the source of where a new subscriber comes from. and I want to push this live to production, but I want to run tests first to make sure that everything works. And I wanted to see how it goes through this because I have conflicting test methods. If you look at our packages, there's like just different ways of doing it. So I want to see how it comes across there. But while that's kind of going, what I can do is I can just go to the site itself and type in an email, hit go. Cool. Unfortunately, if anyone signed up, it would have looked like it worked, but it did not, which is sad. So still nothing. Maybe that's because I need to push up the latest stuff. So forget it. YOLO. Fix newsletter with source attribution. Cool. We'll push that up. We'll monitor it as it's going. And while that is going, we'll put this over here. We will go to our deployments. This is just kicking off. We'll have it be inspecting the build logs on the right. And then on the left, we will go through this line writer PRD. We'll review it and we'll end the video there. Okay. Line writer. Yep. We know what it is. Yep. We know what it is. Features. Cool. This is the stuff that matters. Pencil tool enables freehand drawing of lines for organic track designs. Line tool. Eraser tool. Hand tool. Zoom tool. Line types. Yep. That makes sense. Simulation controls. This is good that it has this. This is the kind of stuff that if you didn't have it, you wouldn't get anything specific. Audio. Below are the user stories. User story 1, as a player, I want to draw a normal line so Bosch can write it. Yeah, I think this is great, honestly. So I'm going to test this out tomorrow in tomorrow's video. So let me make a to-do for that. Daily update Mar 13. Tomorrow's my birthday, by the way, in case you're wondering if anyone's watching this. So number 1 is we'll run through the test, the PRD for line writer using Cline. The other thing we'll do is what did we not cover? The AI Agents SDK came out. You can go and watch the dedicated video that I made for this on my main channel. And I will be building an agent for this. But you should definitely check it out because it is seemingly game changing. I really think that like a lot of the problems that people run into when they're making agents kind of go away, hopefully with this new toolkit, because it wraps up a lot of the different things that you had to do in order to make one. And that should just mean that everybody wins. So go check that video out. The other stuff that I was going to talk about in this video isn't nearly as important. Just, I guess, lastly, is if you want to get closer to the code, get closer to how this stuff works, you can join for free my school. It's free right now, anyways. And in here, it's called Trouble Free. And I'm just getting it going, but it looks like we have 22 members now, which is cool. I don't know, people just started joining it like 4 days ago, which is cool. And I have a bunch of stuff in this classroom where if you're trying to learn the stuff that I'm doing, you can come in here and you can see a bunch of the different prompts that I use. If you don't want to go into the school, that's cool too. You can go to my website and all the resources we talked about today will be in here as like the latest article. So you can go there. And then if you wanted to get more prompts, you can go to resources and AI tools. And under there's an AI tools database. And there's a lot of good stuff in here. Like, I think, prompts are kind of like oil. They're kind of gold. Like, it's crazy how helpful they are. Like, if you wanted to recreate the art style of Perplexity, which they make really cool branding, a bunch of the prompts in here for exactly how to do it. I also have a bunch of really specific prompts for how to take YouTube videos and then turn them into blog posts. So if you had a blog post that you wanted to take from an academic lecture, that's in here. And it's super specific. So you can check that out. Otherwise, excited to upload again tomorrow. So I'll see you then. All right. Have a good one. And then now I have to go over here because the thumbnail will be text right here. And I'm going to put my hands like that. Yeah. And I'm not cutting this, so you know what it is. See ya.